Ladies and gentlemen, as all GMRS users know, GMRS radios have 22 regular channels plus 8 repeater channels. It has been this way ever since GMRS radios were first invented by the Bufwang Corporation way back in 1964, and it has not changed ever since. And as most super-duper advanced GMRS users know, those 8 repeater channels are shared with the regular GMRS channels 15 through 22, meaning that if you talk on a repeater, anyone listening on the corresponding shared regular channel will hear everything you say. It's all very confusing, but us radio experts understand it so that you don't have to. But my friend, did you know that in addition to the basic 22 GMRS channels and in addition to those 8 repeater channels, there are 8 other GMRS channels, or to be more accurate, GMRS frequencies? Do not feel bad if you were not aware of them, because most people have no idea that these frequencies even exist. But fear not, for verily I say unto you that I am going to blow the lid off this big story, and believe me when I say that some people are going to be very, very butthurt when I do it. Of course, these mystery frequencies that I am alluding to are the repeater input frequencies. Allow me to elaborate. Only a moment ago, I mentioned that there are 8 GMRS repeater channels, but what I did not mention is that these 8 channels are comprised of a combination of 2 different frequencies. The output frequency, which is what you hear when people are talking on the repeater and that is shared with the regular GMRS channels, 15 through 22. That is why you often hear repeaters on those channels. And the other frequency is known by us radio experts as the repeater input frequency that your radio transmits on when transmitting to a repeater on one of the repeater channels. So your radio transmits on the repeater input frequency, which is what the repeater listens on, and the repeater then repeats your words on the output frequency, which is what everyone hears. Allow me to elaborate. As previously mentioned 2 or 3 times by now, that output frequency is one of the regular GMRS channels 15 through 22. And those are all in the 462 MHz range. For example, my repeater's output frequency is 462.600 MHz, which is the same as regular GMRS channel 17. However, the input frequency, that is to say the frequency that your radio transmits on, when you use repeater channel 17 to transmit to the repeater, that frequency is 467.600 MHz. Stay with me now. On a GMRS repeater, the input frequency is always 5 MHz higher than the output frequency. In other words, the input is always in the 467 MHz range, and the output is always in the 462 MHz range. Us radio experts refer to this as the split. And in the case of a GMRS repeater, the split is always 5 MHz, meaning that the input is always 5 MHz higher than the output. Remember, 462 is the output of the repeater, 467 is the input, or what the repeater listens to. If all this technical talk is leaving you confuckled, let not your heart be troubled, because, as always, I am going to explain this all in such simple terms that even you will be able to understand, even if you wear a mask in your car whilst driving all by yourself, and even if you thought those arrows in the supermarket were actually going to save your life. However, before delving more into these mysterious and little-known GMRS frequencies, let us take a look at what the FCC has to say about transmitting on these Pacific GMRS frequencies. FCC's Rule 95.1763 says, blah, 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 mobile, handheld, portable, and control stations may transmit on these channels only when communicating through a repeater or when making a brief test transmission. So according to our overlords at the FCCs, you are only supposed to use these frequencies when testing a radio or when transmitting on a repeater. So bear that in mind at all times, because you do not want the FCC's elite, fugitive, apprehension, radio team to break down your door at 3 a.m. and shoot your dog because you were using one of these frequencies to talk with one of your friends. Now let's get down and be serious for just a moment and allow me to be very, very clear. I am not a lawyer, but allow me to point out that FCC's Rule 95.1763 is not a law. It is a rule. Many people may also refer to it as a regulation. Others may refer to it simply as an unconstitutional overreach, but irregardless of what you call it, the fact is, it is not illegal to use those frequencies. Nay, it may be in conflict with the rules, but no laws are broken when someone operates outside the bounds of these rules. Now, I am fully aware that this is a very small and very pedantic point to make. But my friend, if I have learned anything by reading through some people's comments on my YouTube videos over the last 23 years, it is that apparently all tiny, pedantic, and little insignificant details like this are very, very important to some people. So allow me to just remind some people that the FCC's is not a law enforcement agency. The FCC's cannot arrest you. The FCC's cannot criminally prosecute you. The FCC's can send you mean letters asking you to stop shitting on their stupid rules. The FCC's can even recommend a forfeiture of assets similar to a fine. But even for that, the FCC's must ask the Department of Justice to enforce or collect it for them. That's all I'm going to say about that. Every time you use a GMRS repeater channel, you are transmitting on one of these previously mentioned 467 MHz frequencies. So if you were on a GMRS repeater channel, you could theoretically talk to another radio that was listening on that 467 MHz input frequency. You would not hear that radio if it transmitted back to you because, remember, when using a repeater channel on a GMRS radio, the radio is listening on the regular 462 MHz channel, not on the 467 MHz channel. However, if you have a radio that allows you to transmit directly, or as us radio experts refer to it as, in simplex mode, if you have a radio that let you transmit on the 467 frequency in simplex mode, you could then talk to that other radio using this near private 467 MHz frequency. And the reason that these 467 MHz repeater input frequencies are so quiet and why they are nearly private is because, as mentioned only moments ago, these are not part of the regular GMRS channels. And the only people transmitting on them are radio dorks transmitting to a repeater. So in most areas of these United States, these 8 frequencies are very, very quiet and nobody is listening to them. Now allow me to take a moment to outline some of the issues that come along when using these unknown and near private frequencies. Number A, as mentioned previously, although nobody really cares, using these frequencies could make our overlords at the FCCs very, very sad. Number 3, because these frequencies are in the GMRS range, some radios will allow you to transmit directly on these frequencies, but many GMRS radios will not. And this is why so many people crave unlocked radios that let you do whatever you want. And finally, number 4, you could potentially cause interference on any nearby repeater that is using that input frequency. So bear that in mind. And if you accidentally have the same tone set on your radio that nearby repeater uses, you could be transmitting through that repeater and anyone listening would be able to hear you. You have been warned. Now, I know that because I am even speaking of these virtually unknown and unused frequencies, some people are going to be very, very sad and will no doubt leave rage comments proclaiming that nobody should ever even speak of these things in public. So in response to all of those sad little people, I will just say this.